Buying or selling a home is one of the most important decisions you'll make in your entire life. Call the Holly Ritchie team today for a free market analysis.
Hi everyone, welcome to a special edition of Spanningtheneed, Stories of Your Lifestyle. Today, I'm here with a Howland grad, former football player, Doug Datish. Doug, great to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And a former Ohio State player, as everyone's big Ohio State fans around here.
Yes. 02 to 06. Played for Coach Jim Tressel, one of the greatest people of all time, and was very lucky to go down there and play a little football and have some success.
I think one stat that everyone loves about that tenure during Tressel was, I think he was, you can correct, 8-1, 9-1 against that state up north.
Yeah, he was. He only lost once. And it was kind of a big deal for my class because coming in before Tress, I think those guys were probably 1-10 or something like that. And my class was the first one to beat Michigan 4 times in maybe history. I'm not sure.
Well, and actually, that was the national championship year, 2002, I think it was.
It was, yeah. 2002, I was a freshman coming in, played a lot of scout team. And probably had the biggest growth in my football career that you're going against guys like Will Smith and Tim Anderson and Kenny Peterson every single day and just learning the craft against those guys. It was a big year for me.
I have to ask this question because I always wanted to know. I've talked to some former Ohio State players, but they weren't on the team at that time. You're in the national championship. The ball gets fumbled towards the very end of the game. And Maurice Collette, a Warren graduate, rips the ball right out, which I have never seen. I just have to ask, how'd that feel?
It's one of the greatest single college football plays in history because, Maurice is a phenomenal athlete, obviously a great tailback, but to have the presence of mind, I think it really showed his football IQ. I mean, his football IQ was off the charts. And people don't remember, that was Sean Taylor. That wasn't some chump dude. That was Sean Taylor he ripped the ball from, who was one of the best players. Yeah, Sean Taylor took the ball from, man. It was pretty incredible, and it changed the momentum of the game for sure, and really allowed us to build off that going forward.
Yeah, it was just one of those instances that I've always wanted to ask and really talk to some other players, and everyone kind of was, I think, more in shock of like, wait a minute, we got the ball back?
Yeah, it was weird. It was one of those things where, like, football's beautiful in a lot of ways, but one of the ways in which it's beautiful is those moments where you're like extreme, total desperation to complete elation. And it's hard to duplicate that in real life, but in the football field, it happens quite a bit.
Yeah, you think of it at practice, but you never really think of it at a game.
No, yeah, in practice – yeah, practice is different, man. Practice is where you hone your skills and everything. In a game, especially in a game like that, a national championship game, where the entire country is watching you, and you can feel it. I mean, those games have a different feel to them that is kind of hard to explain. But especially in that moment, for guys to make that type of play in that moment, that's a legendary thing. And Maurice only played 1 year, but people still remember everything about what he did for us.
Oh, and you probably happened to watch that and were like, wow.
Yeah, I was just in awe of the whole thing. I was in awe of a lot of things that game. I mean, those guys, you got to remember, that team was, I forget how many games they won in a row. I want to say it was over 30. I think there was like 17 drafted guys on that team starting, and nobody gave us a chance. And, what Coach Tress did was he went in there with his game plan. We had a lot of guys that could execute. We had a bunch of star players, but it started with our defense. I mean, you had a guy like Craig Krenzel who, may not be considered one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but probably the smartest quarterback of all time. And just played within himself, played within the game, did what he could do. And we felt we had matchups we could win. And we did. We won those matchups and exploited them and just controlled the ball.
Yeah, and working at Youngstown State for as long as Tressel was the president, he always had, football-wise, and I knew him back when he was at YSU, always had something up his sleeve. It was that it was really weird, like, oh, okay, we can't do this. We're just going to run it down your throat, because at that time, no one could stop you.
No, it's a style of football that's gone away a little bit. You see some teams utilizing it, ball control, control the clock, play the field position game, just play excellent defense, and really win special teams. And you see a lot of teams now where it's high scoring, it's all those different things, but Tress would have a way of like lulling you to sleep, and other teams, and then all of a sudden pull out a play that, from a team standpoint, we had been working on that play that we pulled out all year. And finally, in the right moment, he just pulls it out. And he did that a lot in my career. And it was always effective.
Well, and you're a graduate of Howland, and you're going to be the guest speaker at the 19th annual Trumbull County Sports Hall of Fame on Sunday, October 30th. Yep. And you're actually, it's funny because you're considered one of the greatest gritters to ever hail from Trumbull County. Yeah. And you, I mean, you were an inductee as well, just like your father. How does that feel?
Yep. It's kind of surreal in the sense of, like my dad, obviously I grew up going to Ohio State games and meeting all his guys that he played with, like Archie Griffin and John Hicks and Tom Scudani, all these dudes. So I was always, not that it was expected, but it wasn't unique to be good at football or to play at Ohio State. So there was always not an expectation by any stretch, but I always knew that it was a possibility. And I think having that as a possibility is kind of cool. And then, obviously it takes hard work and different things in order to do that. But I think I was set up for success early on, and to be able to build upon what my dad did is something special. And it's cool to be a part of the Hall of Fame, because, there's a lot of guys in that Hall of Fame and girls that you look at and you're like, wow, there's a lot of really talented people from this area. And I think this area teaches you something that allows people to excel, whether it's the blue collar nature of it or the hard work or, the cold winters. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this area that really teaches you something.
Well, and you're coming to you're going to be the honoree speaker that night. And there's about 12 honorees, which that list is pretty, I mean, you're talking greats from all walks of life, from volleyball to just being a contributor. And we look at it as just being there. The co-defensive player of the year in Ohio Division II. Yeah, I'm bringing back all the good memories, huh?
Yep. Yeah. It was that was a weird honor. I was kind of surprised by that because I was already committed to be an offensive guy at Ohio State and offensive lineman. And being able to win that award was really cool. And the reason why it was cool is because we got to go to these banquets, and you get to see all the guys that you're going to be playing with at Ohio State and playing against at Michigan State, Notre Dame, all these other places. And it was quite an honor. You never really expect that as an offensive lineman to win some award like that. And it was, I'm glad you brought up the contributors too. I think that as I get older, I realize that, we're on the field. We're the guys out there making plays and getting the Hall of Fame, but there's a whole host of people underneath you that is lifting you up in order to do that. And without the contributors, without those people doing those small jobs as much as filling up the water, all the way to supporting these teams, making sure they run efficiently, and all this different stuff allows us to excel on the field. And I'm really happy that they're bringing those people into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and we've been looking at different individuals, and we talk about individuals that they come back, as you were an inductee back almost nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah,
don't we're just I'm a Howland grad. We've already had this talk.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at it as past people that are now putting on the event that have been, and you're looking at a Chuck Patashnik, who is a Howland grad as well, putting on this event that's got 46 years of teaching. That number is probably a little elevated, but always giving back to what he does. And when you kind of got that invite, what was your impression of like, what was your first thought?
Well, it's an honor to have people think of you in order they want to hear what you have to say or be able to contribute like that. And I think Coach Patashnik or Mr. Patashnik, it's you put it in between the two, but he actually coached my dad back in the day. I never played baseball, but obviously I had him in school. The best teacher bar none, and I had some great teachers, but definitely the best teacher I ever had at Howland, and just a solid human being. So there's 0% chance you can say no to Mr. Potashnik. I mean, that ain't happening. So, and for him to think of me like that, because I think so highly of him, it's a real honor. And I like having the ability to give thanks to people. And, that's one of the things that, I'll probably speak about is just gratitude, the gratitude for being able to do certain things, the gratitude for the people that are in my life, the gratitude for the people that have come before me, and really the gratitude for people that are going to come after us. Just because we're there's going to be 12 more inductees, there's somebody in high school right now that's going to be an inductee in 10 years. So it's a special thing to be able to learn about the history of what happened in the past, and to be able to honor those people. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Well, and we look at the continuous list of those great names that just continuously come out of this area. You may not think of it long term, where these individuals are in their 40s, 50s, and kind of 60s getting these awards that you would never think of, because as you know as much as I do, this is a huge sports area, not just Trumbull County. You're talking Mahoning County, Mahoning Valley, of just the gridiron, the whole mechanism of these are families. And you look at, how does that feel to kind of come out of this area, represent, go to Ohio State, get drafted in the NFL? How did that feel to represent this area?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. Every single coach that I played for, whether it be in college or in the NFL, and multiple teams, and they found out I was from Warren, Ohio, they knew a couple of things. Number one, Buena Vista chicken. Every single person knew Buena Vista chicken. And they're like, oh my God, Buena Vista chicken. We love that place. Uncle Nick's chicken. Sunrise Pizza. They all knew Sunrise Pizza and Buena Vista chicken. So, and I'm talking NFL guys, you would never even imagine. And they all knew. And the other thing they all knew was Coach Angle, my high school coach.
Yeah.
Coach Angle is known by every single person I've ever met in football. I don't know how he knows everybody, but everybody knows Coach Angle. And those guys would understand, because they knew where I was from. They didn't have to worry about my toughness. They didn't have to worry about me showing up on time. They didn't have to worry about me, complaining or doing any of those things. Or when it was cold, they didn't have to worry about it being cold, because, a lot of guys in the South, when it's cold, man, they just shut down. So, there's certain inherent things from being from this area, like I said earlier, that gives you a leg up on people. We know what it's like to work hard. We know what it's like to be trustworthy. We know what it's like. And I think that everybody that comes from this area, that succeeds inside this area, finds that to be true when they go other places. And it's an honor to be able to represent this area. It's always been an honor to be able to represent this area. And I think moving forward and throughout my life as I go on, I can rely on people in this area. People here, they got your back, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, and I think we just don't talk about on the field. We also talk about what you're doing off the field, and what you've done with the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer, and helped raise $30 million for the James Cancer Center. And then in 2015, you founded the Alpine Springs Rehabilitation and Recovery Center for struggling with addiction. Talk a little bit about how you kind of got into the addiction and recovery center, because that's been huge in just Trumbull County.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's awful that I have a business that does that. It's awful that we have to we can support people, but it's really nice that we can have a safe place for people to go to get better and work on their disease, work on their issues, and get into recovery. When as a kid, always talked about being of service. My family was always about being of service to people and doing certain things for people, whether they'd be big or small, but it was always about being of service. And then when I went to Ohio State, Coach Tress said something that really stuck with me. He when we were talking about being of service, he said, if you can figure out a way to have a viable business that can service people, and you can hire people and do all these different things, that's the key, right? And addiction's been a part of my life for a very long time. It's affected lots of people. I've had many people die, just like everybody else. We all know those sad stories. And when I was looking for something to figure out what I could do, for whatever reason, this idea is the one that kind of stuck. And it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of perseverance, but we've been able to treat thousands of people at this point. We're looking at we're expanding right now, and we hire a bunch of really quality people that we have a great team of folks. And there's nothing better than giving back. We've been in business since 2016, and now I have people that started in my facility at the lowest point in their lives, and now they're working for us. And I have a guy that did that. He just bought his first house. Like it's incredible, man. It's an incredible thing. So one of the things we need to really get rid of is the stigma of it, the stigma of mental health, the stigma of addiction, the stigma of any of those things. Anybody can look at somebody with a broken leg and say that person needs to go to the hospital. But if they see somebody that's struggling mentally or having a crisis, everybody just wants to turn their head and look away or do whatever. And what you need to do is that person needs help. They're suffering just like anybody else. And you should not be ashamed of working on your mental health. You should not be ashamed of your addiction, because 1 in 10 people are affected by addiction or mental health problems. And I don't know any family that hasn't been affected by them. So we need to really work on getting rid of that stigma so that we can take away the barriers for people to get help. And then more services. We need to fund the services more. We need to give access to people for services. Services have shrunk since the 50s. It's the only medical service that I know of that has shrunk since the 1950s.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point about mental.
Yeah.
And at the long short of it is the pandemic really showed us what the true colors of what are these types of diseases and just what really, because we thought there was little gaps in depending what that service or that niche of the problem. Then I think the pandemic exploded everything from poverty, from mental health. I mean, you just name it.
Yeah, it broke people, and it fractured our society in a way that I don't think I would have thought possible. We thought we had some really sick people coming through our facilities, but the pandemic blew that away. Last year was the deadliest year for people dying of overdoses. This year's probably going to top that, because it took society is a big thing. We found out that we live in our facilities are communal setting. When you take the communal setting away from people, when you take human interaction away from people, there's just people that fall off. There's people that have disappeared from society during the pandemic, and I don't know how you reach them. We're trying to figure that out now, is how to reach those people that have just fallen off the face of the earth, so to speak, and become super insular. And that's not good, man. And when you're completely insular and you have no outside things, you get into some very strange stuff, whether you get inside your own mind or you're just on the internet all day, whatever it is, it's not good. And you're 100% right. And I think as we've moved not past the pandemic, because it's still kind of here all the time, but we're finding that people really are receptive to getting help. And we're kind of seeing that veil getting lifted a little bit now over the last 6 months, where people are starting to come out of the woodwork a little bit and really they're not afraid to speak out about what's going on.
We look at everything that, as an active member in the community, you've done so much, and we appreciate and thank you for everything you've done for everyone in general. You've done quite a bit, and I don't think you're deeply involved in those multiple charities and others. You have a nonprofit as well, and you're you're also on the Ross Griffin Memorial Foundation. So you are sitting on these and you're seeing the first impact. So we appreciate that as a testament of what you're doing in the community.
Well, thank you. It's I feel like it's the least I can do. I've been very, very lucky in my life, very fortunate. I'm around people that need help, and I think that the worst thing we can do is to not just give somebody help. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I try to tell this to a lot of people when I talk to kids, especially. One little random act of kindness can change the life of somebody. And I'll give you a little quick synopsis of it, a little short story. So Ross Griffin, obviously I sit on the board of it. Ross took his own life. Horrible thing. His parents decided to change that from a tragedy to give back to mental health and things like that. Now, I met a girl that Ross talked to, I think, one time in his life. And she was a girl that was struggling incredibly in high school and nobody, she never told anybody, never did anything. Ross was kind to her one day, and that changed her life. She's that day, whatever she was struggling with, he was nice to her, and that changed her life. So just being nice to people, just being kind. I think we have a problem, and one of my things is just a big positive message. But I think we have a problem with teams and divisiveness and all this different stuff, and the pandemic just ratcheted that up. So if I can do anything, or the people I work with can do anything, just to be kind to people, show people that there's kindness in this world. It sounds hokey, but it's a big deal.
Well, no,
just be nice to everybody.
Exactly. I think you bring a good point. Is you watch the news, it's 24 hours of nothing you really want to see. And I think here at Spanningtheneed, all we want to do is share good stories, share what people are doing in the community. So I think you hit it right on the nail. So
yeah,
Doug, I appreciate you taking time. I appreciate you taking time. At the end of each little interview, I'd like to do a little fun Q&A.
Cool.
So it's whatever the answer is. It could be professional or personal. It's your call. It doesn't matter. It's your answer, no one else's. What's your best accomplishment?
My wife and my son. You know, my son, especially when you see him grow up and do things, and he's doing something kind, it like just fills your heart with everything. I think being able to be an example for him, and hopefully continue to be that example, and then he can be the example for somebody else. So far, the 5-year-old, it's the best accomplishment.
Best memory.
Well, the best memory was the birth of him, which is going to sound hokey, but
my
other favorite memory, and this is going to sound super weird maybe, but I was out hunting in Montana with two of my dearest friends, like my brothers, and we were laying, it was like -10 degrees outside, and the sky in Montana is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, like brings tears to your eyes. And then a meteor shower happened. And I just sat there for like 2.5 hours with my brothers, looking up at the sky and realizing that, I'm just one small piece of this universe in such a visceral way. I often think back about that when I'm having a tough day, because, I realize the universe is much bigger than me.
And it was probably peaceful.
It was beyond peaceful. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was shockingly beautiful.
You have video? Everyone got an iPhone.
Negative. No, I have a horrible thing with, I don't take video or pictures of anything. I just try to lock it into my brain.
Nothing wrong with that. If there was one person you'd want to meet, past or present, actually, let me back up. Who's your role model?
Yeah. Jim Tressel. I was thinking about a lot of things, but, Coach Tress is a unique being in the sense of, he really is authentic. People think he's full of it. He is not. He is the authentic guy, to a point that is, it's funny, because people that don't like him, or people that bristle against him, it's because they don't like the mirror that they see when they look at him. They bristle against what they see, and they're like, he has to be fake, because they're fake. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And also, I was thinking about a couple things, but the standardization of how he operates. He has standards. He has standards for himself. He has standards for his players, standards for everybody around him. And he upholds the standard. And you know what the standards are. And if you do not uphold the standard, there's a punitive thing to it. But he will build you up from that. He doesn't give up on people. He doesn't give up on people. He thinks everybody can meet the standard. And it's just a constant devotion to service to people, service to the community, service to everybody. He's just he's an amazing human being.
And then the last question, if there was one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be and why?
I would like to meet my paternal grandfather. He died when I was 6 months old, and I grew up hearing stories about him from my relatives and things like that. And I would have really liked to have a conversation with him, to kind of learn where we all came from, in the sense of, he's from Romania and all these things, and just kind of hear his story and what he had to do coming here as a person, and then building something and having a family and all that. I think there's something very interesting about that for me personally.
Doug, I appreciate taking time. I wish you nothing but the best on October 30th when the Trumbull County Hall of Fame is. If you want tickets, you can check out our website at spanningtheneed.com with all the information, who to call, and when to get tickets. So, Doug, pleasure. Please give my best to the family. I wish you nothing but the best. stay on. Everyone, have a great night. If you want more stories, podcasts, or events, please go to spanningtheneed.com. Thank you, everyone.